trying out a new wig. It's called Harried Vice Principal. I think it's working for me. 2, 3, 4. Do 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 do. It's Wednesday. I'm in love. Hi everybody. We don't have time to fart around. Picks of the week. And like every woman I've had sex with has said, this is going to be a long one. I got 7 different number ones here. And I normally 3 or 4, maybe sometimes less, picks of the week, but I got 7 of these sons of bitches here because there are entirely too many new books coming out, and I need to start being stricter with myself. So I'm gonna force myself to commit on video to whether or not I want to continue with these books, so I don't just keep buying them. Because honestly, that's what happens with me a lot. Is I'll start buying a book because of reason A or B. But then there's reason C through Z why I shouldn't, but I just keep doing it anyway. And I'll even, it always has to get to the point where I'm like, why do I read this? And I go, oh, right. I don't have to. It's the collector's lot in life. First up, we have Jana and the Unpossible Monsters, #1 from the good people at Oni Press. This was actually the last thing I thought I would pick up today. This was in the, this is on my list as with a question mark because it's written and drawn by Chris Samney. Chris Samney is an incredible artist. And I think it's my favorite work by him was he and Mark Waid, the writer Mark Waid, did Daredevil for a couple years. And it was at a point, that book has always been, certainly since Frank Miller took it over in the 80s, the early 80s, late 70s. It's been a darker book. But, I mean, as you can see from Samney's art, he's not exactly the dark, gritty type, which is exactly what that book needed at that time. So Wade and him brought in more of an element of fun to it. Unlike this hair. Jeez Louise. It looks like I got served divorce papers while on a payphone in the rain. And while my shoes are getting soaked and I'm getting served divorce papers, the person on the other end of the phone is telling me I have cancer. And then I go, oh, finally some good news. So anyway, all right, what I was going to say is that this looks definitely more of a kid's book, which I'm not immediately opposed to. I enjoy children's fare. Is that hard to believe? But I took a look, and probably more than I should have, because the art's incredible. But since it is Chris Samney's show, there's not a lot of dialogue. So I hope I didn't ruin it too bad for myself. Here's another outlier I picked up today. This is James Bond, Agent of Spectre, #1. I've never heard of this character. I'm just kidding, of course. James Bond is another one of these franchises, not unlike Conan or Judge Dredd or Doctor Who to an extent, although I have next to no interest in Doctor Who. One of these franchises that's comics adjacent. Certainly, I mean, James Bond was an adventure novel hero before he was a film hero. He's obviously much more of a film hero now. The comics, and this is published by Dynamite, who's had the license for that character for a few years now, and all the books that they've done that I've read by them have all come more out of the books than out of the films, which when you I have about the same interest in the books as I do in the films. If this doesn't sum up for it sums up for me my relationship with James Bond. My preferred James Bond is Roger Moore. And if there's a James Bond more favored by people who don't really care about the franchise, I mean, sheer numbers alone. I mean, maybe Pierce Brosnan because he's more current and a very good one too. I like Pierce Brosnan as James Bond. But yeah, Live and Let Die is my favorite James Bond movie, mostly because of Jane Seymour, also because of Yaphet Kotto, thirdly because of Roger Moore. The book is I think that's the only one of the books that I've read, the original Ian Fleming novels, and it's good. It's better than the movie, frankly. And honestly, as much as I enjoy the character's libido, I also am kind of over it at this point too. Oops. Speaking of over it, I gotta fire my cinematographer. Anyway, this is all to say that I haven't read a whole lot of these comics lately, but this one is written by Christos Gage, who is a very favorite writer of mine. That's not how you say things. Christos Gage is a really good comic book writer whose name I haven't seen around much because I'm assuming He's writing. I should have looked it up, but I think he's writing more either for video games or for television. Actually, I think he's writing. He's more of a television writer, and I think he just writes comics because he every now and again just because he can or because he likes to. I don't know, but I've always enjoyed his work. He was really around a lot in the aughts, and I remember it must have been. I want to say like the mid aughts, like 05, 06, around there, where he was, and he had a lot of books out. And a favorite of mine was a book called Absolution, which was about a superhero who was also a serial killer. It was very Dexter, not that I've ever seen it, but so I was like, yeah, I'm not super into James Bond, and I have no idea what Agent of Spectre is. I'm assuming it's kind of because these Dynamite series aren't, there's like different writer. Every time there's a different writer, I don't know, they change up the number one so much. I think this is just kind of a continuation. It doesn't matter. Here's the number one that I'm really looking forward to. This is ENIAC number one. And I mentioned, this is published by Bad Idea, whom I mentioned. Oh, I have the thing here still. Oh, let's see if I can. Oh, the flowers are still standing. This was a promotional thing that I got in my bag at the shop a few weeks ago. And so I was like, oh, then yes, anything Matt Kent has to do. Because I think this is mostly his company. It was a little, like, I think it was a $5 price point, which... No, it was only $4. Oh, okay. Because this is a really nice book. It's got really high quality paper on the cover and on the interior, and it's drawn by little. It's drawn by Dougie Braithwaite. Doug Braithwaite. For whatever reason, I always call him Dougie. Maybe it's because I have a cousin that I call Dougie. But Doug Braithwaite is a British comic book artist, and he's been around since at least since I was in high school. I think he broke. Yeah, he definitely broke on 2000 AD, like drawing Judge Dredd and stuff. And then I want to say by the time I was gung-ho, like when I was 13 or 14, he started drawing more American stuff. He hasn't, like, he drew an arc of The Punisher with Garth Ennis, which I think is what kind of cemented his name in my mind. But I definitely knew he was around before that because he's a really good artist and his name sticks in my head for some reason. And also, as a teenager, he was one of the first comic book artists I was like, oh, he's black? I had no idea. Not that I guess it doesn't make a difference, but it makes a difference in that it's a very white industry. So whenever somebody who's, really good and should be getting more attention, who's also black, is like, well, that's even more noteworthy, frankly. See, I'm solving racism. You're welcome. And then let's see. What else? That's 3. This week from Dark Horse Comics came Dead Dog's Bite. I have no idea what any of this is. I took a flip through it before I decided to buy it, and it looked really good. It's written and drawn by Tyler Boss, who drew 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank back in 2016, maybe 2017, and that was written by Matt Rosenberg, who was at that time. Well, I still enjoy his work now. He just doesn't seem to be writing as much as he was back in 2016, 2017. 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank was really good, although I'm hard pressed to remember any specific details. But if I didn't like the guy's art, I wouldn't have bought it. Obviously. Let's do a couple of these. A couple more of these small press ones. I also got Demon Days X-Men #1, which I will be filing under X-Men, D. This is written and drawn by Peach Momoko, who is a very, very good artist too. I've mostly, I get the impression she's been around longer than I've been aware, which wouldn't surprise me at all, because I feel like she got her break over in Japan, where she was born. And I don't pay nearly as much attention to Japanese books as you would think I would from the way I keep my mustache. But the covers that I've seen her draw have been really good. She drew a Usagi Yojimbo one not too long ago, and I really like the art on this. I think this is another one of these. I just thought of that. So I think this is essentially, I could be confusing this with an earlier title because there was one similar. I think this is a sort of Japanese-ified version of the X-Men. This is the X-Men written and drawn as though they were characters in Japanese folklore. I could be confusing that. There was very much a title. The title now eludes me. But Marvel did this thing, again, I want to say like in the mid-aughts, maybe 07, where they did a manga verse. So it was a bunch of the Marvel superheroes done in a manga style, which was not continuity. And then there was a couple minis, I want to say, that did exactly that. Were much more, this might be just kind of, it looks that way because it's Peach Momoko's art. But they did yeah, they did a couple books like that with the X-Men. And then there's the one I was thinking of, I think is a different one. There was a book written back in the early 2000s by a Japanese writer whose name now eludes me because it turns out it wasn't a real person. It was actually C.B. Cebulski writing under a very Japanese pen name, Akira Yoshihara or something like that, and purporting to be of direct Japanese descent, wrote and drew these comics. I think the X-Men or Marvel characters, but in very like there are a lot of negative space and a lot of haikus and stuff. And it turned out it was this Polish kid from Pittsburgh or wherever the hell Cebulski's from. Maybe he's from New York, and who is now editor, or at least he was editor in chief of Marvel Comics. And so it didn't come out until he was editor, and he had to take some fire, I think, for a minute, because it was essentially him putting on yellow face and being like, oh, most honorable comic books, right? And it was really, I didn't read the books when they came out because frankly they didn't look that good. And as much, and no respect to Japanese culture, which I have a fondness for, as I do for all world culture. I like Japanese culture. I like Usagi Yojimbo. I like a lot of stuff. Like I have many eclectic tastes, but I'm definitely not one of these guys that's like hardcore in Japanese culture, because those kinds of guys have always given me a weird vibe. But also just because it's like, oh yeah, this is good. Oh wait, am I running out of time already? Jumping jeepers. All right. What else did I get? I got this Swamp Thing Infinite Frontier #1. I'm pretty sure this comes out of the Future State storyline, but I don't know. But there's 10 issues, so I want to make sure I like this before I commit to it. And then this is a wild card I didn't see coming. This is also from Boom Studios. This is Berserker. It's written by goddamn Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent. So assuming Keanu Reeves, I think, because I'm pretty sure Keanu is like a comic book guy. So I have no reason to think that he wasn't involved in this more than just putting his name on it. But it's written by Matt Kent, like the script, so I'm like, okay, we're in good hands. And then Ron Garney draws it. And I think Ron Garney, up until recently or just recently, was drawing Daredevil, which I haven't read in a while. But I do really like John Garney's artwork. I always have. So I'm looking forward to that. Picks of the week. I think my phone is running out, but picks of last night. Now there's 7 books. Of course I had to talk too fast. All right, first up from last week, I read Two Moons #1. This was really good. This is what I was hoping for. It's a Civil War story told from the perspective of a Native American fellow. I don't remember if there was any kind of supernatural element to it. I think there wasn't. No, yes, there is. That's right. Okay, so it does turn into a bit of a horror story towards the end. But honestly, just the setting and the pacing and everything that Arcudi and Gian Giordano are doing in here is really fun. It's very moody, but not like overly so. It's still recognizable as like a Western or like an entertainment, but it's appropriately grave, I guess I want to say. I also read Marvel Voices Legacy #1. It was very much like in like the forwards and afterwards make very clear how important it is for representation in comic books and in pop culture in general, and how Marvel's really patting itself on the back for how far they have come. But I mean, they have, I think, deservedly so. But honestly, this book was completely, I could have done without it. I could have waited. There's a third one, because they did the Native American one and they did the African American one. And the third one will be Women, and I don't think I'm going to buy it just because it's another $4.99 book I don't really have room or money for. So I'm not saying you shouldn't buy it. I'm just saying I have the app. I can't keep buying stuff I don't need that I can just read there. This was really good. Ice Cream Man Volume 1. This is issues 1 through 4 of this book that started in 2017, I want to say. Which I had missed just because, things fall through the cracks. Really good stuff, though, and very much in line with Haha, which is also written by W. Maxwell Prince. It's, again, another anthology, but it has, this one, at least so far, has a much more clear through line. The Ice Cream Man himself is the connector between all the stories that are happening that are very weird and horrific and really, really good. Very Twilight Zone. But that's it. I mean, people use Twilight Zone as a shorthand for science fiction anthology, which makes sense because it was the best. But it's more than the Twilight Zone because, again, like I'm saying, there's more of an arch There's more of an overarching story going on, but only 4 issues in, we're not really seeing it yet. But I think they're up to like volumes 4 or 5. So once, I get kind of rolling on some of this other shit that I've got to read, then I can do that. And then also, I didn't show this last week, but I think I showed this previously. This is Deathstroke R.I.P. This is the final trade paperback from Christopher Priest's run of Deathstroke. This is volume 7. So you now have 7 volumes of these to go out and pick up, and you will not regret it. This is the best stuff Christopher Priest has done since Black Panther, and I will stand behind that, as I do with so little of the things that I say. All right. That is it, because I don't remember what the thing was asking me before. But that's it for this. Ba-da-beep-boo-ba-ba-boo.